For so many of us, COVID-19 has changed how we live life, but it has not stopped us from moving forward in life. And right now is such an important time for so many high school seniors, but also college students as they continue to try to figure out what is next for them. What is life going to look like on the college campus come the fall? Joining us now, we're going to bring in Shane Lewis. He's the director for undergraduate admissions at Oakland University. Shane, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So with that, Shane, can you talk to us a little bit about the admissions process this year? How has it changed for students that are still deciding if they're going to go to college in the fall?
Absolutely. We typically try to start with students when they're quite young, encouraging them to learn more about the college search process, all that entails. Typically, we're encouraging them to do things like visit college campuses and to get connected with those institutions that might end up on their short list when they get to their senior year. And so this year has really thrown that for a loop entirely, where we've really been challenged in terms of being able to offer that experience where they're getting to visit campus and actually see what life might be like as a student in a virtual capacity. And so for many students, they may not have had the opportunity to get on that campus of that school that is in their top 5 or 3 institutions that they might be applying to. And an institution like Oakland, as an example, we were offering tours for a portion of the fall. And then when cases rose again in Michigan, we put a temporary pause on those. We're now back to on-campus tours. I can gladly say that we're once again welcoming students back to campus so they can get some of that experience they may not have had over the last 6 months or so. But in general, for students, that varies institution to institution. So it's kind of all across the board, and it certainly has been a challenge for them.
So as you've been able to welcome, prospective students back to campus, have you found that they're more eager to come in and try to visit the campus in person, or are some of them still doing it virtually?
The good thing about, I think, the pandemic, the silver lining, so to speak, is that we have learned that there are students who prefer a virtual opportunity. And so I see us continuing to offer things like virtual appointments and virtual live guided tours for students who are requesting that. At the same time, we have plenty of students who have been asking over the last couple of months, when will I get an opportunity to visit campus? So we are certainly seeing some of that pent up demand, I think, start to play out as we've reintroduced physical campus tours on campus. And I'm looking forward to being able to continue to offer them through the summer, especially when campus looks as nice as it is on my background here.
Right. And again, we should point out that your background is a virtual background, and the picture was taken before the pandemic. I know you were like, wait, they don't have masks on, and we can all appreciate that, but we're so excited to get back to that time where we can be outside and everything is green and blooming and we can walk around without a mask.
Absolutely, yes. We're taking all the safety precautions necessary for the tour. So hopefully students and families will feel comfortable visiting Oakland, especially if they've been hesitant about getting out there into the public. But, again, now that vaccines are becoming more prevalent and we're learning a lot more about how to remain safe in environments like an outdoor campus tour, we're hopeful to see more students come and join us this summer.
We're talking with Shane Lewis. He's the director for undergraduate admissions at Oakland University. And Shane, we know it's been an unusual year and a half for so many students, especially when it comes to testing. And, those dreaded ACT and SAT scores, are they needed right now? Because some students were able to take them, but also we're hearing a lot about learning loss because, it's just been a struggle for so many students right now.
Absolutely. And I think, in higher education in general, we've recognized how difficult this last year has been and may continue to be even for the class that we're seeing for the class of 2022. For those students who are rising seniors just completing their junior year as well. Most of the seniors this year likely have not necessarily had the same opportunities to take those standardized tests that they may have in a typical year. The class of 2020, they were affected toward the end of their senior year. So this has been completely different for this class. And we are doing all that we can to remove barriers for those students to getting to higher education. So Oakland, like many of our peers, have shifted to this test optional admission environment where we are putting more of an emphasis on the grades that they're earning in the high school for admission purposes. And so we are excited at Oakland that we're going to be able to continue offering test optional admission for the fall of 2022, knowing that given the uncertainty we still have surrounding the pandemic and the availability of standardized testing, that we're going to hopefully set students more at ease about what their future college search process is going to look like. Where again, removing one of those barriers to hopefully that eventual enrollment in higher education, because we understand how important higher education is, I think to students' individual advancement, but also the advancement of students and the state in general, the economic advancement. And so we're hoping that students can see this as a means of getting connected to higher education without that additional barrier in their way.
Have you seen a shift in the type of student that's applying for college right now? Are you maybe getting more local students because of the pandemic?
At Oakland, we do typically enroll the majority of our students actually from the Tri-County area, from Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And we are seeing that more so, yes, this year for sure. More of these students who I think are going to feel more comfortable staying within the local area, but that's typically always been a draw for Oakland in general. So it's difficult to measure until we really get to the fall and we see how final enrollment will really shake out, how that might impact students who are coming from other areas of the state in terms of their comfort level in moving across the state potentially to live on campus and attend college elsewhere.
Shane Lewis with us here on the MegaCast. He's the director of undergraduate admissions for Oakland University. And with that, Shane, students that may be on the, let's say, the late side right now, because we are coming close to graduation, what is the deadline for students that maybe haven't applied just yet? Can they still apply?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think nationally, you see May 1st has been typically that college selection day, that national decision day where we're celebrating the choices that students have made of where to attend in the fall. And I think a lot of that is taking place a lot later this year. And so I would say no student is necessarily too late because this entire process has been turned on its head. And so at Oakland specifically, absolutely, we are still accepting applications. We operate on what we call rolling admission. So we will accept applications up until the start of fall classes. And I think that you'll find again at many of our sister institutions, we're trying to remove these barriers to enrollment because we know that the college search process has been impacted so greatly by the pandemic. And so we're trying to support students in the best ways that we can. So specifically at Oakland, yes, absolutely. Students can still apply. It's free to apply to Oakland, which is great. Another barrier we're taking out of there.
That is great to know because college applications could get quite pricey. A lot of times it was like $150 to apply. And if you're applying to, 5, 6, 7 different colleges, that adds up. So that's great to hear that you're doing that for the students.
Absolutely. At Oakland, we're what we call a fee-free institution. So at Oakland, students pay just one price, and that's the cost of tuition. Everything is rolled into tuition. So we try to make it, again, as easy a process for students and families as we can. We enroll, about 30% of our new students are first-generation college students. So we know things like the cost of college, how to pay and finance your education can sometimes, again, be another barrier that we're trying to remove for students in terms of getting that knowledge out there and helping them take those next steps to enrollment.
So with that, Shane, what advice do you give to students that are still working on their applications? What can they do or say or put into their application to make them shine?
I would say the number one thing for students to know is that we're still here for them, even though we might be here in a different way. And so, though our office is seeing students in person upon request, we still have a lot of virtual opportunities to connect with us as well. And so, as students are working through that application process, we're happy to connect with them and walk them through that. And again, we understand that this has been a really challenging time for students in terms of coming to the end of their senior years and kind of grasping the fact that they're on to that next phase in their lives. And we want to do all that we can to support them through that. So whether it's just answering a simple question, getting them connected with other of our campus partners on campus to help them navigate, again, things like financial aid or on-campus housing opportunities, that we're there with them every step of the way. So we're just really excited to kind of help them continue to move forward.
I know last year there was a lot of focus and a lot of talk about students that were taking gap years because they weren't getting the college experience that they wanted or anticipated. So for maybe a student that did take off last year, what advice do you have for them trying to re-enter into college?
Yes, I would say, at least specifically at Oakland, we are trying to get back to as normal a college experience as possible. In the fall, we will be offering as many in-person courses as is safe to do so. We're hoping to get back to essentially pre-pandemic life at OU. And again, I think with the prevalence of the vaccine and other health and safety measures, that we're going to be able to do that. So we're really sharing with students that we're getting back to this, quote unquote, normal experience. And so, we wouldn't necessarily recommend a gap year, but that if students are debating that again, we're always here and happy to kind of walk through them with that process, going through kind of the pros and cons in their personal situation.
Shane Lewis with us here on the MegaCast. He's the director of undergraduate admissions at Oakland University. And for the students that maybe did take that gap year, take that experience that you learned through that year and make your application stand out if you've done some incredible things over this past year, which we hope that they have, because we do know sometimes when people take a gap year, they don't always go back to college.
Absolutely. And I think, all students, not only those who have taken a gap year this past year, are going to have learned something that they can bring into the classrooms this fall. We've all gone through completely new experiences this year that will influence the way that we continue to think and learn about ourselves, about the content in the classroom, and how we kind of apply ourselves as human beings going forward. So I think that that's really valuable knowledge that students are going to bring into this experience.
So with that, Shane, are you getting a lot of questions from students as well as their parents about vaccinations? Because we know in a lot of colleges are going to require the vaccination to be back on campus.
We are, and at Oakland, we are going to be requiring the vaccination for students who are choosing to live with us on campus. So as I mentioned before, the majority of our students are really traveling in from the Tri-County area or relatively locally, where they are commuting in back and forth. We only have less than 3,000 students or so who will join us to live on campus. And so though we're not at this time requiring it for all students, we are of that population. So we've gotten quite a few questions about that. And of course, just like with any other thing, if students have medical or religious reasons for a potential exemption, they're able to request that as well.
Shane Lewis with us here on the MegaCast from Oakland University. Is enrollment up, down, flat? How do things look right now?
It's still a bit early to get a good sense for fall, and probably more so this year than we would have even seen in a normal time. So as an example, our returning students just started registering for courses last month, and our new freshmen won't start enrolling until they attend orientation this summer. And, I meet fairly regularly with the other directors of admission from the state universities here in Michigan. And I think what most of us are seeing right now is just some delayed activity. And again, I think even more so than we saw last year at this time, when we were really at the start of the pandemic. We had no idea what to expect for the fall. And I think families and students right now seem a bit more hesitant to take action. I think they're probably waiting to see how many of the state regulations might loosen, how vaccination is going to continue to roll out, and really how each of us in the state is going to announce our plans for that course delivery for fall. So in general, I think there's some slight apprehension. I think everyone's really fatigued, and I think a bit more hesitant about learning in that completely remote environment with everything they've experienced this last year, which is why, again, at Oakland, we've been really sharing that we're returning to as many face-to-face classes as possible, resuming what should look like a much more traditional academic year to help families and students understand what to expect and why they should still enroll.
So do you anticipate that you're going to see a larger number of maybe older students also applying? Because we had that big push for frontline workers, as well as some residents that were 25 years and older that maybe didn't have college or to go back and get their associates and to finish. So do you anticipate some of those students are going to now continue their college education and transfer over?
Yes, definitely. And that's our hope. I think that definitely supports the governor's post-secondary attainment goal for the state of Michigan and the post-secondary attainment goal as well for us here in Oakland County. And at Oakland, we established the OU Frontline Workers Scholarship for students who were approved through the Futures for Frontliners program in the state to then transfer over and continue their education at Oakland. So we're very much looking forward to those students transferring over and completing that bachelor's degree.
Because we know sometimes too, transferring classes can get a little tricky and a little confusing.
Absolutely. And at Oakland, actually, we made a significant change over the last year to become now what we believe to be one of the most transfer-friendly policies here in the state, in that we have no limit on the number of transfer credits that students can bring in. And so we're very excited by that they can essentially be honored for all of the past work that they're doing as they transfer into Oakland, working, of course, very closely with our academic advisors to determine that pathway to graduation at that time of their transfer.
Well, for a lot of people paying for their education, that's very attractive because there was nothing worse than taking a class that wouldn't transfer. So that's great that you're offering that. Shane Lewis with us, Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Oakland University. Shane, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye today?
No, I think just in general that, higher education is so important. Again, like I mentioned, I believe it to be truly transformative from a personal standpoint. I'm a first generation college student. And so I'm a huge proponent for college access. And for any of those students who are still out there debating on what their opportunities might look like for fall, just know that we're all here for you, that we're here to support you and making and taking that next step and getting enrolled for fall. So we hope to see you on campus physically like this.
A lot of people will be so excited to be back physically as well in their classrooms. So I would anticipate that it's going to be an exciting fall. Things are looking up, right, Shane?
Absolutely. We can't wait.
Well, thank you again, Shane Lewis, Director of Undergraduate Admissions, Oakland University. Of course, you can always find more information just going to the Oakland University website. They have a host of information on their website.